Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept the View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo...
Sunny Hostin was seconds away from a total on-air collapse. What was meant to be a normal discussion quickly turned into a digital ambush, and she didn't even see it coming. Charlie Kirk didn't have to be in the same room to shake her to the core. From a completely different location, he dropped a media nuke that sent shockwaves through the entire set of The View. It started subtly, a comment here, a dig there. But then Sunny crossed the line, and the fallout was instant. She insulted the intelligence of everyday Americans, and the internet exploded with outrage. With the arrogance of someone convinced they were untouchable, Sunny took a jab at white women who voted for Donald Trump. Uneducated, she said, loud enough to echo across the country. And just like that, the firestorm ignited. Charlie saw the opening and went in with surgical precision. He didn't just respond. He obliterated her argument and left no room for recovery. This wasn't a debate. It was a televised takedown. While Sunny squirmed in her chair, trying to keep control, Charlie Kirk fired back from his own platform with a level of intensity that left even the audience frozen in disbelief.
Look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it. And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit.
And he didn't even raise his voice. Sunny's elite tone and dismissive attitude lit a match under every viewer who's ever worked hard without a fancy degree. Charlie pounced and made sure that match turned into a wildfire. Just because someone didn't go to college doesn't mean they're stupid, Charlie declared, and millions agreed. His words ripped through the air with the force of a hammer crashing through glass. He framed her elitism as the perfect example of what's wrong with mainstream television today. And suddenly, Sunny wasn't holding the high ground anymore. She was sinking fast. Her polished TV persona cracked under pressure. She fumbled with her notes, glanced nervously at the camera, and smiled that strained smile every host dreads when they know they've lost the room. And still, Charlie kept going. His digital rebuttal was packed with dramatic music, powerful graphics, and the kind of overproduced flair that makes content go viral in seconds. He knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't a calm response. This was a public demolition, wrapped in sleek video and delivered like a political grenade. And Sunny had no shield. Even her co-hosts looked stunned. Nobody jumped in to save her. Nobody interrupted. It was as if the entire studio froze and silently watched her unravel live on national TV. And if that wasn't enough, Charlie's video exploded across social media like a shockwave. Comment sections erupted. Memes flooded timelines. People were saying Sunny had finally met her match. Viewers didn't just watch.
This Turning Point conference, were in the front of turn out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs, and
I think it's important that every single person that attended that turning point, every Republican speak up against the swastikas, against the flags that were waved.
You let them in.
President, open your
You let them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
So you are.
They dissected every blink, every stammer, every nervous laugh. She wasn't just losing an argument. She was becoming the internet's newest cautionary tale. Reaction channels wasted no time turning her meltdown into viral gold. Within hours, her face was spliced into TikToks, reels, and clips played on loop with clown music and flashing text. It didn't matter that Charlie was miles away. His impact was felt in every pixel of that episode. He wasn't just attacking her views. He was tearing down the entire ivory tower she stood on. Sunny tried to hold it together, but her eyes darted like a trapped animal looking for an escape. Her voice, usually strong and composed, trembled just enough to signal to viewers that she was in real trouble. And Charlie, he was already celebrating from behind his digital throne, sipping victory and watching the collapse unfold like a perfectly timed plan. He didn't just win, he embarrassed her on a national scale. Sunny's panic was unmistakable. Her carefully crafted media image, built over years of polished interviews and courtroom credibility, was unraveling in real time before millions of viewers. This wasn't some fiery debate with raised voices and finger-pointing. It was something far more brutal. It was the slow, excruciating collapse of confidence on live television, with no commercial break to save her. She looked to her co-hosts for backup, for a sign of support, but they stayed quiet, eyes wide, mouths tight, clearly unsure of what to do or say. Even Joy Behar seemed unsure whether to chime in or sit still. Charlie didn't just call her out. He dragged her entire worldview into the spotlight and held it up for public judgment. He exposed the hypocrisy in her tone, the smugness in her words, and the cracks in her argument. And while Sunny floundered on live TV, Kirk's video was ripping through social media with the power of a tidal wave. It wasn't just being shared, it was being celebrated. Conservative blogs declared it a cultural victory.
And the final point I'll say is this, is Sunny, you guys thought that abortion was going to be this like quasi-zealot religious issue? I'm pro-life. If people in the audience aren't, that's fine. What I'm saying though, what gives me promise, and I think we can all agree on this, is that there are other issues that should animate and drive our politics other than this very divisive one. And I was really encouraged by that, Megan. Very encouraged, because the media was forcing this as an up or down vote on a referendum on a highly complicated, very emotional, very personal issue. And it turned out the American people were like, yeah, actually, these other 6 things matter more. And good.
Commentators hailed it as the moment the legacy media finally got a taste of its own medicine. Even Gen Z jumped in, remixing her facial expressions into viral memes. Within minutes, Sunny's distress became entertainment. Her nervous blinking was turned into a looping clip on TikTok. Her stiff smile was now captioned with, "When you realize the internet's watching." And Charlie, he was glowing like a smug lighthouse in a storm. He knew what he had done, and he knew it had worked. While Sunny was reeling, he was already prepping his next attack. He didn't even have to scream or insult. He weaponized calm confidence, and the result was devastating. It was like watching a lion toy with its prey, all while looking into the camera. Sunny had walked into that studio thinking she was hosting a segment. But what she really walked into was a media ambush, and she had no idea she was the target until it was far too late. As she tried to apologize, her words came out shaky. and awkward. "My bad. I'm sorry," she offered, but the damage had already been done. The internet doesn't forgive that easily. Even the apology was scrutinized, dissected, and remixed. Clips of her "my bad" moment were paired with sad music, dramatic lighting filters, and thousands of sarcastic comments asking, "Too little, too late." Meanwhile, Kirk's team rolled out merchandise, celebration posts, and montage clips like it was a political Super Bowl. They didn't just respond. They turned her breakdown into a full-blown media campaign. She had underestimated him, underestimated how fast the internet moves, how fierce it can be, and how quickly it can turn a moment of weakness into a never-ending joke. What made it worse was that she wasn't wrong in her views. But this wasn't about who was right. It was about who looked like they were in control. And Sunny looked like she had completely lost it. And in today's media world, perception is everything. It's not about policy or facts. It's about who can dominate the narrative in the shortest amount of time with the loudest emotional punch.
Yeah, they have nothing else to talk about. Maybe you should get the lawyer that worked on that Covington Catholic school case. What was that, a $200 million settlement? I think, Charlie, you could use the money, and your students definitely could, too.
Look at your achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now, Sonny?
Yeah, and again, by the way, rarely do you get the answer to a question in the question. And her whole question is exactly why there was a rebellion against them.
Yes.
Listen, just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. I always differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. I mean, it's or about North African lesbian poetry. Okay, that's fine.
Charlie didn't just dominate, he detonated. He threw a digital punch so strong, it left Sunny on the ropes, gasping for air and trying to smile through the chaos. The audience didn't need a fact check. They could see the fear in her eyes. They could hear the hesitation in her voice. They could feel the shift in power. And it was undeniable. The View's producers knew it too. Behind the scenes, phones were buzzing, executives were sweating, and PR teams were scrambling to figure out how to spin the collapse into something less disastrous. And yet nothing could hide the truth that had already gone viral. Sunny Hostin had been humiliated, not in a shouting match, but in the most dangerous way possible, with calm, calculated exposure. And still, the internet wasn't done feasting. Every second of Sunny's discomfort was chopped, clipped, and analyzed by reaction channels who knew they had struck viral gold. People weren't just watching, they were rewinding, zooming in, and turning her face into punchlines across every social media platform. Her blinking, a meme, her awkward pause, a trending soundbite. The View's official account stayed eerily quiet, avoiding the storm brewing online. They knew anything they said would only pour gasoline on the digital bonfire Charlie had started. Meanwhile, Turning Point USA's supporters were in full celebration mode. They declared the moment a turning point, not just for the debate, but for the entire culture war narrative they'd been pushing for years. Charlie didn't even need to defend himself anymore. The footage did all the talking. His supporters were reposting it non-stop, using it as proof that the new generation wasn't backing down. And while Sunny tried to regain her composure in the following segment, her words fell flat, like someone reading lines after the plot had already collapsed. Her posture was different, her eyes a little dimmer, her voice just a bit less steady. The confident legal expert people were used to seeing had been replaced with someone clearly shaken. Charlie didn't play by the rules of daytime TV. He played by the rules of viral warfare, and Sunny found herself in a battle she didn't even know she was in,
Now we begin with a shocking apology just a short time ago from the ladies of The View to Turning Point USA. A war of words broke out after the conservative group was rallying the next generation of voters at its youth summit in Tampa, Florida this weekend. And the liberal panel just couldn't help themselves. The group sent a scathing cease and desist letter after hosts on The View suggested that Turning Point had embraced neo-Nazis who showed up outside the event.
Until it was already lost. Her apology, while sincere, came across more like a formality than a reflection of real remorse. And to the internet, that's worse than saying nothing at all. People online picked it apart, comparing it to past apologies, judging her tone, mocking her phrasing, and laughing at the very idea that such a polished figure had stumbled so hard. She had stepped into the storm with no umbrella, and now the world was watching her try to dry off with nothing but a paper towel and a forced grin. Charlie's fans didn't miss a beat. They flooded her mentions, her hashtags, and even her old clips with comments reminding her of the moment she got humbled on live TV. And while she carried on with the show, the energy in the room had shifted. The view had been pierced, and the wound was still open. Some crew members just stared at the monitors in silence, watching the moment repeat again and again on replay, knowing deep down that something major had just happened, and there was no undoing it. Sunny stayed seated, her face tight, her body frozen, in a state between professionalism and sheer panic. She tried to nod along with the next segment, but the damage was clear. Her shine had dulled. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk's team released follow-up commentary, doubling down on everything he'd already said. It wasn't just a one-and-done hit. It was a full media blitz designed to keep her floundering. Supporters of Turning Point USA cheered him on like a victorious general returning from battle. Social media timelines were covered in clips, comments, parodies, and endless analysis of every second of her breakdown. Even daytime TV commentators, who normally stayed quiet, couldn't resist weighing in. Some called it the moment the View finally got exposed, while others said, Sunny just wasn't ready for real opposition. The impact rippled far beyond that one episode. Viewers began questioning the View's credibility in real time, wondering aloud whether the show was truly prepared for this new era of digital confrontation. It wasn't just a stumble. It was a cultural fracture. One host, one sentence, one viral response, and suddenly the polished wall of elite television crumbled for all to see.
Monday, we talked about the fact that there were openly demonstrators outside the Florida Student Action Summit of the Turning Point USA group. We want to make clear that these demonstrators were gathered outside the event and that they were not invited or endorsed by Turning Point USA. A Turning Point USA spokesman said the group, quote, 100% condemns those ideologies, and said Turning Point USA security tried to remove the neo-Nazis from the area but could not because they were on public property. Also, Turning Point USA wanted us to clarify that this was a Turning Point USA summit and not a Republican Party event. So we apologize for anything we said that may have been unclear on these.
And there was Charlie, seated comfortably behind a mic, smiling like a man who'd just flipped a political chessboard and walked away with all the pieces. He didn't win with rage, he won with precision, style, and flawless timing. And that, in today's world, is what turns a message into a movement. Sunny, for all her experience and intelligence, had been caught speaking down to an audience that was no longer willing to be talked down to. And the consequences were swift, brutal, and public. She had underestimated how fast perception moves, how quickly a narrative can be twisted, and how unforgiving the internet can be when it smells weakness. Her breakdown wasn't loud or messy. It was worse. It was slow, silent, and broadcast in high definition for everyone to dissect. She didn't yell, she didn't storm off. She sat there, blinking, trapped in a moment that would soon be replayed thousands of times by people she didn't even know existed. For years, Sunny had been the composed, educated voice at the table, but that night, all anyone saw was a woman unraveling under pressure she couldn't escape. And Kirk? He didn't even have to break a sweat. He knew the moment would live on, not just as a clip, but as a cultural victory for those who've long felt ignored by the media elite. In the end, it wasn't a debate. It was a dethroning, a shocking reversal of power on live TV that left Sunny scrambling and Charlie smirking from the shadows. And though Sunny will return to her chair and The View will air its next episode, the crack has already been made. Viewers saw something raw, something real, and they won't forget it. Charlie Kirk may have left the building, but the echo of his humiliation still lingers in every corner of that studio, and no one knows when it'll fade. Because in today's media battlefield, it's not about who talks the most. It's about who hits the hardest. And on that day, Charlie didn't just hit, he shattered.